Hello, welcome you, the Bhopal School of Social Sciences. I am Ashish Ogle, assistant professor in the Department of the Humanities. So today again we are going to start to discuss about a very important topic of personal administration. In this personal administration today, what the topic in this session I am just taking, that is from the unit 1, role of civil services. So let's start. So in the recent last class, I have discussed with you all a very important kind of the topic of what is the meaning of civil services and what is the feature of civil services. So after having discussion over that particular topic, now in the sequence of the earliest session, I am just continue with the role of civil services. So let's see here, before actually I am just going to start, let's understand the role of civil services basically is very important. I must say into the modern scenario. The modern time, just actually I say after the Second World War, a lots of the government, okay, we can say a very great important role are getting developed by them. What is the role or the functions and the burden increase over the government in course of the welfare and the development of the citizens or the residents of the country, that this number of kinds of the very important kind of features are also getting developed for the civil servants. Civil servants also play a very much important role into the different sectors. What this all I am just going to explain in this particular running matter. So first I am going through running matter and then I just one by one explain you also. Let's see here. The civil services in developing society like India plays a very important role and it performs the following functions. So what type of functions they are performing one by one I am just going to explain. Let's see here. Just like policy implementation. So policies means what? First of all, very simply, the policies are the decisions of the government. The policy implementation work is performed by the civil servants. First, I go through the running matter. Look here. Implementation of the policies decided by the political executives is the most important and the fundamental function of the civil services. Let's see the next. The civil servants execute laws and policies to attain the goals of the welfare state. That is social equity, economic development and so on. So look here, the policy implementation is really very much important, and what the policies are decided by the government, these are associated with the different kinds of the sectors and the different kinds of the, we can say, aspect of the human life. So in every aspect of the human life, in every sector, the civil servants have to perform their functions, their role, and they must have to do this all kinds of the whatever policies are there decided has to be get executed by them. Let's see here, I'm continue, look here. We are continuing to discuss on the civil services. So the next I say, after having discussion over the policy implementation, so not only the policy implementation but the policy formulation function also performed by them. So policy formulation, so that we can say the very important role for the policy formulation is performed by the government or the politicians. But you know, the politicians are amateur and even actually they are not skilled or having the technical knowledge about the specific different kinds of sectors. And in this way, whatever the policies are framed for this, civil servants really play a very much important by giving them assistance and advices concerned with the what policies and how they are going to be get formulated. Let's see here with the running matter. Formulation and determination of the policy is the function of political executive. Okay, but the civil servants have also come to play an active role in it. How? They aid and advise to the ministers in the policy making. Political executives, being amateurs, okay, cannot understand the technical complexities of the policies. Hence, they depends on the expert advices, professional civil servants. So these are actually a very important role. I just say a very important role played by the civil servants in these kinds of the, I say, the developing countries like the India. I'm just continue. So let's see here what the other very important roles are played by them. In the important role that actually we see the delegated legislation. So what is the delegated legislation? The principle of delegation, I thought actually you all know. Conferring of authority to the lower level. That we call as a delegation. So when I say about the delegated legislation, the word legislation means what? The word legislation means the process of, we can say, the lawmaking. So in this way, the parliament sometimes, or I must say all times, that they actually just make the laws, passing the acts into the skeletal form. And whatever the laws and their acts are actually prepared by them in skeletal form, all the laws and the acts are given to the executive branch to perform their functions upon. It means to the execution and implementation of the acts and laws. But because of the, we can say, the time constraint or the lack of technicality of the knowledge in the particular subjects, generally the parliament legislate all the acts and all the laws in skeletal form, and they handed over these laws and acts to the executive branch, and they are going to fill in the blanks. It means they are given the authority to further make the sub-laws and regulations concerned with it of the same parent law, and the process we call as the delegated legislation. Again, actually I am just going to explain, but first we go through the running matter. Look here, this is a quasi-legislative function performed by the civil services. Due to lack of time, pressure of the work, increased complexities of the legislation, the legislature makes laws in the skeletal form and delegate power to the executive to fill in the details. So these are very much important role played by them. Thus the civil servants make the sub-laws, rules, regulations, but within the limits of the parent law, enacted by the legislature. Delegated legislation is also known as the executive legislation sometime, or the subordinate legislation also. So what we see here, a very important thing, the civil servants are really play a commendable job into that kinds of, we can say, the developing societies or the developing countries. Why? Because in every sector, for everyone, they must need to help out and giving the advices, and even not only advices and the helping out, but all the execution and implementation duties, or we can say responsibilities, also overlying on the civil servants. Next, I am continuing with the role of the civil servants. A very important role again are actually played by the civil services in course of the administrative adjudications. So let's see what is this. So this is a quasi-judicial function. The first we have discussed about the, when I say about the policy formulation, so in this way delegated legislation. So delegated legislation, I say it is the quasi-legislative function, while here when I say administrative adjudication, it is we called as a quasi-judicial function. Quasi-judicial stands for what? It means actually they are not the part of judicial branch, or they are not actually performing any kinds of the activity in concern with the judiciary. But that is whatever the activity performed are actually they are performing the role of the judiciary, but under the executive branch. Let's see, I am continuing. This is a judicial, that is a quasi-judicial function performed by the civil services. The civil servants settle disputes between the citizens and the state. For this purpose, administrative tribunals with the civil servants as the judges are established. A very simple thing. Many times, why? Because actually I say the civil servants are those in the government who are serving to the society, to the people or the country, we can say the residents of country. So in this way, when they are providing the services to the residents of the country, or whenever they are actually providing whatever the kinds of the activity, so sometimes when they come into contact with the peoples, with their services, some of the grievances, means the complaints are getting raised by the peoples. And in this way, that it become very much important that sometimes a kind of contradictions get developed and some of the arguments comes from the peoples over the state. And in this way, some of the particular, we can say, the disputes arises. And to resolve these disputes, there is a provision of the administrative adjudications. So the administrative adjudication is very important role played by the civil servants into the different kinds of the administrative tribunals, or the different kinds of the judicial tribunals, which are perform the functions under the executive branch itself, not into the judicial branch. Let's see. The income tax appellate tribunal, one of the very good example. Industry tribunal, one of the very example. Rent tribunal and the railway rates tribunals are some of the very important examples of the tribunals in India. Again, the very important thing is here. What is the meaning of the tribunal, sir? So the tribunal means what? I am just going to explain you all. Tribunals means, they are also working like a judicial court, but they are not working on the basis of the formal laws and regulations. Instead of that, to providing the justice, they are trying to apply or consider the natural laws. So that's why whatever the actually we can say the justice provided by these tribunals are considered as of the natural justice. Okay. So this way, okay, sometimes we also see this particular tribunals, whatever the justice are provided by them, against this justice many a times any of the okay participants or the any of the we can say the person who is going to be get the party to okay have that particular justice also can appeal into the any court of law or even the Supreme Court directly. So different tribunals has a different kinds of provisions, and even actually we have just discussed about the different kinds of the okay examples of the tribunals over here. The next I am just going to have a very important role played by the civil services. Number thing, just like these tribunals, what I explained, functions outside the ordinary court system I explained. In addition to the above, the civil services also perform the following functions. So whatever the functions very broadly we have discussed, what the functions we have discussed, number one, okay, policy implementation. Next I discussed very important function, that is policy formulation. Number three, that I discussed a very important function, that is delegated legislation. And number four, that is administrative adjudication. These are the major functions performed by the civil servants, but these are not the limit, or we can say it is not the only functions performed by the civil services. But there are many number of the functions performed by the civil services and which actually reflect the role. So in this one by one I am just going to explain, just like the administrative planning. So in administration, whatever the planning, they are performed by the civil servants. The next one, administration of the public enterprises. Public enterprises can be say as of the business hands of the government. Some examples of the public enterprises, just like the ONGC, Bharat Earth Movement Limited, that is BEML, or the ONGC, just like the VSNL, BSNL, okay, or the particular Oil India Limited or the Bharat Heavy Electricals Limited. A number of kinds of these government-owned companies that can be considered as of the business hands are called as the public enterprises. So this all the public enterprises are administered by the civil servants. Next, assisting the ministers in fulfilling their responsibilities towards the parliament and its committees. Sometimes they are also providing a very great important assistance. That is also play a very important role over here. These are not the limits, but they are that is actually we can say some of the glimpses. Okay, there are more to discuss about the role of the civil services in the developing society. Handling financial operations of the state, that is also play a very important role. Next, reforming and improving the administrative through O&M, that is organization management. They are not only perform the functions, but they are also look into their own organization. Under the O&M, it means organization method, okay, device. We see there is every kinds of the administrative organizations are trying to look into where they are lagging, what is the lacuna, where they are the limitations, what kinds of the functions are not effectively performed by them. So after having identified these areas, they also introducing number of kinds of reforms. They are trying to okay inculcate a new kinds of the ideas and the innovations by which the better services in a very comfortable and convenient manner could be provided very effectively to the peoples. And for that consistently the section which is working into the organization only, that we call as the O&M okay organization. So these all are performing. Apart from that, the public relations. So these all are a very important role played by the public, okay, we can say the under the public personal administration by the civil servants. Let's see here. So this all we have discussed in the today's class about the role of the civil servants. So thank you so much. I really very thankful to you. I will just come back with a new other session. So please kindly okay just be with us with that the Bhopal School of Social Sciences. Thank you so much and take care of you all. Bye bye.